think it's really important for you to understand what you are reading. So it's not really about how much time you spend reading, but how much you are able to retain, how much you are able to apply. I picked what worked for me. There was a material I was reading, and by the time maybe 2 months into externship, I dropped it. So I had read it for like maybe 5 months, and it was just clear that it wasn't working. So I wasn't afraid to pick up something else or try another strategy. So the fact that you've been reading a particular thing for so long or a particular textbook for so long does not mean that you can't drop it and pick something that you might find easier to digest or understand. Hi everyone, I'm Ewaoluwa Olasoji. I attended Obafemi Awolowo University and graduated with a first class. I also attended the Enugu campus of the Nigerian Law School, and I also graduated with a first class. And by virtue of graduating with a first class, I received the Digis Prize for students who attained a first class in their bar final examinations. How did I mentally prepare for law school? I did not really mentally prepare for law school, and this is one thing I wish I had done better. The period before law school was filled with like uncertainties. I wasn't sure, or at least for myself, we weren't sure we were going to go to law school that year. So we're just waiting and hoping, and because of the uncertainties surrounding it, I wasn't so prepared. So when I saw my name, in fact, law school had already resumed by the time our names came out, and also it was just rush hour. And the next thing, about 2 weeks or so after lectures had started, I resumed. So yeah, that was how it went. How was law school for me? Law school was challenging. Law school was interesting. Law school was fun, right? It was tasking. Was it what I expected? Yes, right. We've all heard stories about how law school can be, and I think I managed my expectations. So I wasn't shocked or surprised or anything like that. So it was what I expected. What was my preparation process like? Did I have a special reading method? For preparation wise, it was my preparation method or process was on the go, right? So I spent a larger part of law school trying to figure out what worked for me, and I think it helped a lot. So resuming law school, I had this plan. I would wake up early, I would read, go to classes, come back, read, eat, read, go to bed, wake up, read, and all of that. But when you get to law school and you really start the work, you'd realize that things may not always go the way you planned. And I think it was like that for me. So my reading method, to just summarize it, I would say it was to read whenever I had the opportunity to read whenever I could read. And that was the way it was for me. So I read at whatever opportunity, whether it was before classes, during breaks, when I was on my bed, when I was in a gathering, like I just read whenever I could read. So that was an aspect of my reading method. And preparation process. I think there's I had some priorities, right, when I was in law school because I was privileged to speak with a number of people, especially when law classes started and it was like I wasn't really getting a hang of things at the beginning. And what I learned from speaking to a lot of people really helped. So I had some priorities. I was very particular about making sure I understood whatever concepts I was learning. So I wasn't just reading because I needed to count the number of hours I had read in a day or things like that. That wasn't my the length of time I spent reading wasn't as important to me as what I had gained from reading that day or maybe that hour or that moment. So I prioritized learning my legal principles over mastering my authorities. So it was very important to me to understand the principles and to understand what I was learning. And that was one of the yardsticks I used to measure my progress. So do I understand this thing? Like when I see past questions, can I answer them effectively? So if I didn't remember authorities for a particular principle, it didn't bother me as much as if I didn't get the principle with regards to answering that question right. So I think my preparation processes were guided by what I felt were most important. So mastering principles were like a big deal for me. Regarding special reading method, I had different strategies for approaching each course. So there were courses that I felt that I really needed to understand, maybe because of how technical those courses were and probably how bulky they were. So for some textbooks that I felt required more explanation, I read textbooks for them. So, for example, for my civil litigation, I read textbooks for at least 4 months. For the first 4, 5, 6 months, I read textbooks a lot for civil litigation. For corporate law, I read Kama, right? And I also read textbooks. For criminal litigation, I focused a lot on my notes, what we were taught in classes, and then I used materials sometimes. For professional ethics and skills, I used materials. So I think for me, I really focused on what worked for me. I tried to like integrate the different pieces of advice I had been getting here and there and try to like use it to determine what worked for me. So I didn't have like a general reading method for all my courses. How I read was dependent on how well I understood the course and also how much work I determined that each course would require. So yeah, that was how my preparation process was like. So reading method, I read anything. I read textbooks when I needed to read textbooks. I read materials when I needed to read materials. I read my notes when I felt I needed to really understand what the lecturer was saying. So I think that having the Holy Spirit guide you, if you're a Christian, really does help. So I'm not sure a general reading method can work for everything. It may work for you, but yeah. So I was just trying to focus on each course and how well I understood it, what I needed at that point in time. So yeah, that was how it worked for me. What was a typical day in law school like for me, and how did I plan my time? For a typical day in law school, I woke up around 5:30 or 6 a.m., depending on how busy the day before was. So if I had a really busy day the day before, I'll most likely wake up around 6. But if it wasn't so busy, I tried to aspire to waking up around 5:30 a.m. So I would have my devotion and pray, study my Bible, try to hear from God, get a word from God for the day and all of that. Then after, I would pick up a material on my phone, right? So if it was a day where we were going to be having classes on criminal law, and we were probably the topic for that day was maybe charges, because for law school you most likely, it's not even most likely, you would know the topic that was going to be discussed in class that particular day, and you are usually expected to have read ahead. So most times I do my own reading ahead early in the morning before classes. So classes start by 9. So between 6:30 or 6:45 and 8 a.m. I would skim through what we have to discuss in class that day. And then after that I go freshen up, and then I go to class. Most likely myself and my roommates then. We go to class around 15 minutes to when classes will start. So we usually get to class around 8:45 a.m. Then we come back on a day when things are not so hectic. We are done with class around 1:32, and then from there I go to the cafeteria, I go get myself lunch, and then I go to my hostel. So when I go to my hostel, I eat, and after eating, I sleep. Around 5 p.m., if I'm being very accurate, I would either go for group discussions or stay in my room to read. So one of the two, but most times it was I would stay in my room to read. I would read till around 7:30. I would go and get dinner. then come back, go and get dinner 7:30, eat by 8:30, I'm done eating. Then I would come back to my room and read till around 11, 12, 1. But after externship, returning back to class, it was the routine changed a bit. So around 6:30, I would meet up. I would meet with my friends, not like physical meeting though. We would meet online, Google via Google Meet, would solve past questions, would practice drafts and things like that. But that was after externship. Before then, it was just reading. But by the time we came back for externship, we had to like double down on our revision and things like that. So I had a very closed group of three people. So yeah, so that was how it was. Then on weekends, I would just wake up, have my devotion, have breakfast, read, then read, sleep, wake up, have lunch, read, eat, sleep, just with my roommates and things like that. So yeah, so that was how a typical day was. How did I plan my time? I didn't have this. I'm generally not such a rigid person, so I won't say I had like a rigid timetable, but I just had this mental note of what I was supposed to be doing part time. And in truth, there were times when things changed, right? There were times when we closed around 3:30, right? And that way, you just had to adjust and then just keep on moving. So I didn't have like a very rigid plan, just a mental note of what I was supposed to be doing. And if I wasn't doing that at that particular time, of course, you feel if you're in law school, you would most likely be used to this guilty feeling. Yeah, go and carry your book. It's time to start reading and things like that. So yeah, I try to read whenever I could. Sometimes read on my bed, read when I'm tired, and these things actually compound. So yes, that this was how a typical day in law school was like for me. Did I attend all the classes from day one to the end? No, I didn't attend all classes. I wanted to, and I strongly advise against not attending all classes. So, for my own campus, we had this peculiarity of having classes on Saturday. We didn't have classes on Monday, so our classes were Tuesdays to Saturdays. And before resuming law school, I didn't know I was going to be posted to Enugu campus. I didn't pick it, but I found myself there. But before law school, I had enrolled for a leadership program and classes were once a month and classes were on Saturdays. So I didn't think it was going to clash with law school classes or anything, but it did because I was in Enugu campus and we were to have classes on Saturdays. So classes were just once a month. And because of this, and attendance was compulsory for this leadership program. So because of this, I know that I missed two classes. And then I think sometime during revision period, I think that I missed a class also. So yeah, I think I missed a class because the classes were lengthy and I had a lot to cover and I had to take this calculated risk of skipping that particular class and studying and taking the length of time to study instead because well, it was a calculated risk. I do not advise, but yeah, so I missed some classes. And for the classes I missed, I tried to make sure that I got notes. I told my friends ahead that I was going to be missing this particular class. So they needed to take like extra care in listening and writing every single thing the lecturer said and all of that. So yeah, that's where friends and support and all of that comes in. So yeah, I didn't attend all classes, but I strongly encourage you to attend all classes. Classes are super important and they've helped a lot. Was I in a study group and would I recommend it? Law school automatically groups you into study groups upon resumption, and the study groups were not perfect for me, or my study group wasn't perfect for me because there were a lot of people, and I function better with smaller groups, or I felt that I would function better in a smaller group. So I created my own study group with few of my friends, and one study group that really worked for me was a group of just three of us, and that was we had that group after externship where we met every day to practice drafts and solve some past questions. So yeah, I would recommend study groups, but I would say that your study group should be something that works for you, right? Don't just join any study group you see or just follow the bandwagon. You can just create a group of friends that you have like similar ideologies, or you guys are aiming for the same goal. It doesn't have to be a large group. It can be three of you, can be four of you. And then for the group that law school creates for you, I think that is particularly important, especially for the because of the tasks that you're supposed to be solving in those groups. So as much as you can, if you can, please attend your study group and try to solve those tasks together. But whichever way, please just make sure that you solve those tasks. So that's what I would recommend. Did I have friends in law school, and would I recommend making friends there? Did I have friends? Yes, I had friends in law school, and I would absolutely recommend making friends in law school. So, law school is like a melting pot. You see people from different parts of Nigeria, you see people from even other African countries, and I think it's just a really fascinating place, right? You can hear someone speaking another language next door, a language you've never heard of, or things like that. So I think that it's a great opportunity to actually like meet people with different cultures and just expand your network. So yes, I had friends in law school. I made friends in law school, and I would absolutely recommend making friends. They actually, you need that support system. Let me not speak too much English. You need the support system. So I won't say you should wear yourself out making friends if you are like maybe an introvert and you don't have like so much energy to make so many friends. But just try to make, sometimes the quality could be better than the quantity, but just have that support system. You should have someone that can come and drag you out of your room if you are sleeping too much. You should have someone that can support you. There are sometimes when you might feel like crying and you really need someone to tell you that you can do this. So you need friends. You need friends. Please. I absolutely recommend it. Was I in a relationship during law school? Yes. In fact, I'm tempted to just throw a shout out to the person. Yes, I was in a relationship during law school. And okay, I'm not even let me protect the person's identity. So okay, yes, I was in a relationship during law school, and I think it was very helpful. Thank God I'm not being asked to recommend whether you should be in a relationship during law school or not. But if you have like a good, just make sure your relationship is a support system. And my relationship was a constant source of encouragement, even when I didn't want the encouragement. I had an amazing relationship in law school, and it helped a lot. Yeah. So, was it all books for me, or did I also take time to have fun? It wasn't all books for me, but I don't know how to answer whether I took time to have fun or not. So it wasn't all books. It was books and a lot of rest. So fun was maybe number three on the list. So I prioritized reading, but I rested a lot. I slept a lot in law school. Like I tried to preserve my mental health. If there's a way to say that. So I slept. I know that like when I needed to sleep, I slept. I slept a lot and I read a lot. So I don't remember going to town to have fun, apart from maybe SRC, traditional night or things like that. Yeah. And then maybe gisting with friends, just hanging out around the cafeteria and things like that. But I didn't attend any parties. I didn't see the need to. So I'm not advising against it, but you just have to do. If you're a social butterfly, which I'm not, at least not necessarily. I'm not that big on attending parties in law school when my first class is staring at me in the face like this. So yeah, so but I read a lot, I rested a lot, I hung out with my close friends within the school premises. So that was how it was for me. That was what worked for me. So I prioritized rest. I slept well, I ate well, and I read well. How did I read during externship? So I think at this point I should just talk about how my own priorities in law school. I mentioned earlier that I prioritize certain things. So when it was time for externship, I drafted this timetable, and the timetable was to help me finish the syllabus three times by the time externship was ending. So let me just let me move to the end before I come back to continue. I did finish the syllabus once. I did finish, by the time I was leaving for extension, I did not finish the syllabus. And there are many reasons for this, but I think one of the lessons I learned was that first, things don't always go as planned, and you just have to work with the cards you are dealt. You shouldn't be someone that is complaining about the peculiarities of your own situation or things like that. So yeah, I figured out that I wasn't as fast as I wanted to be. It just didn't work out. Right. I found out that I was supposed to read two topics in a day sometimes, and the day was almost over, and I wasn't even done with one topic and things like that. So I just had to keep pushing. And then there were also some things that I didn't expect that occurred along the line, and that also contributed to me not finishing the syllabus. But this is just a good time to just say that no matter like what happens, right? Even if you feel like by the time externship is over, you're not done with the syllabus, or you're seeing some people they've read 5 times, they've covered everything from back to back, they know everything in command, everyone is just being really sound, and you feel like you're not yet ready. It's never really over until it's over. So let me answer the question I was asked. So how did I read? So I prioritized, as I mentioned earlier, I prioritized understanding legal principles over mastering my authorities. That was what works for me. I think it's really important for you to understand what you are reading. So it's not really about how much time you spend reading, but how much you are able to retain, how much you are able to apply. So the way law school works, or the way law school exams work, law school tests your knowledge of the law and your correct interpretation of the law to a given set of facts. So for me, I prepared for those two aspects. So I prepared for the testing on my knowledge of the law. What does the law say about a particular situation? You need to know what the law says. And then you need to be able to apply the law correctly. And I also prepared for that. I read my textbooks, I read my notes, I read materials. I picked what worked for me. There was a material I was reading, and by the time maybe 2 months into externship, I dropped it. So I had read it for like maybe 5 months, and it was just clear that it wasn't working. So I wasn't afraid to pick up something else or try another strategy. So the fact that you've been reading a particular thing for so long, or a particular textbook for so long, does not mean that you can't drop it and pick something that you might find easier to digest or understand. So that was one thing for me. I read a lot. I read whenever I could. I read at whatever opportunity I found. And I also solved questions a lot. So I know that I can see that I solved all past questions from 2015 to 2022. I solved receipt past questions. I solved questions a lot. And I think one thing past questions help you to do is they help you to cater for the part of applying the law to a given set of facts. And I think that this is what distinguishes many students. So reading is common to all. Everybody you see in law school is reading. Everybody reads. That's the truth of the matter, right? But it's not everyone that makes a first class, and there are many reasons for this. So and one of the contributory factors may be how well you are able to apply what you have read to the questions that are placed in front of you. So one thing I did, I solved past questions a lot. And a strategy that I used, whenever I solved past questions, I wrote out, I had a note, past questions note. So I didn't make jottings. So that was another thing. Some people make jottings and it works for them, but I didn't make jottings personally. But I had a past questions note, and I wrote out with my pen. I wrote out the answers to every single past question I saw. So I had a way I wrote it. It was just a note, and I would write the topic on top of it, write the year in case I needed to refer back to the question, and write out, just summarize the question and then write out the answer. And the reason why I did that was because I wanted to have that note for last minute revisions whenever it was time for exams. So I had notes like that for all my courses. So from 2015, all the answers to past questions were in that note. So I had that note, and I solved past questions a lot. And they really helped me because even for one of our exams, there was a little error that was later corrected. And the moment I saw that error, probably because I had solved past questions a lot, I just knew it was a mistake. I didn't touch the question. And it saved me some time. By the time they came back to like correct it and all of that, I didn't have to be canceling. I wasn't so disoriented because I just knew that this is a mistake and it was really a mistake. So I I solved past questions a lot and I solved tasks a lot. So, well, I did solve tasks a lot during externship, so let me not jump to that. But yeah, I read a lot and then past questions. So yeah, shout out to my relationship body for pushing me to start solving past questions. Because another thing is you may be scared, right? Because you see past questions and you can't answer anything. So and that might make you like mentally delay, but just start solving past questions as early as possible. I think the moment externship begins, right? As you are reading, start solving past questions. You can't really tell how much you have retained what you have read until you are able to apply it to questions that are presented before you, right? So in your bar finals, nobody will ask you what you have read. They will give you questions to answer. So I think you may be doing yourself a little disservice if you are just reading and you are not testing how well you can apply what you have read. So yeah, I read a lot. So for me, 60% reading. I think that's quite ambitious. 60% reading, 40% past questions. It may not be like that, right? But okay, let me say 70% reading, 30% past questions. But either ways, not even past questions, 30% questions. So it could be past questions, could be task questions. Just make sure that you are solving a question that came from law school at some point in time. So it could be past questions, could be tasks and things like that. So I had a timetable during externship. I tried to follow the timetable, but I wasn't able to like meet up to the goal I set. But one thing I know was that whatever I read during externship, I understood what I read. Right? It wasn't about the quantity for me, but whatever I read, I made sure I understood it. So that was my goal. I wasn't so sad whenever I probably didn't meet up with my goals for the day or whatever. But my major aim when I was reading was to make sure that whatever I had read, even if it took me 4 hours to understand it, right? I wasn't going to shorten the length of time so that I could meet up with my timetable goal for the day or something like that. So I would say for externship, try to finish the syllabus at least once, right? I didn't, and I wish I did. For the after externship, the remaining number of days I had before bar finals, I can almost say I spent it regretting that I didn't finish the syllabus, right? So please try to finish the syllabus at least once. If you can't, there's still hope for you, as you can see. But try to finish it at least once. If you can finish it twice, fantastic. If you can finish it 3 times, beautiful. If you can do 4, that's fine. If you're able to finish the syllabus 5 times within the extension period, I'm suspecting you. Are you sure that you really understand everything? Like, are you sure you really sat down to like digest it and retain? I'm suspecting you, but if you were able to do that productively, then perfect. So try to finish the syllabus as many times as you can. That was what I tried to do. But most importantly, try to make sure that you retain what you have read, you understand what you have read. So I would say that just push for quality over quantity and please solve questions. So knowing the law, right? Knowing what you are taught is one part. So if that's the only thing you did, you only achieved 50% of your goal, or you only achieved 50% of what they are testing you about. The other 50% is applying it correctly. So please just try to find a balance between reading and then solving questions, whether past questions or task questions. Both of them are very important. Yeah. What advice and tips do I have for preparing for the bar finals? So when I came back for externship, the pressure was a lot. So let me just say it that by the time externship is over, bar finals is literally staring you in the face. If there is a better way to say that, and the pressure is going to be a lot. So one of the best ways to mitigate that pressure is to start reading early. Just start reading. Whether you have a plan or not, be reading. Whether you have figured out what works for you or not, make sure you are reading something. While you are trying to figure out what's going on, while you are trying to understand how law school can be, just be reading. Right? No matter what even if you are crying, be reading. Even if you are confused, be reading. Everything adds up. That's one thing I would say. Just start reading, right? Whether you know whether you're doing things correctly or not, be reading. The truth is that just be reading something law school related, right? Whatever you read, I feel it has a compound effect, and most times it's that residual knowledge that saves you in the exam hall. So just it may be something you read one time, right? You can't even remember where you saw it. So just like I'll say be reading, right? Start reading early. Figure out what works for you, right? Don't try to I don't think you should try to copy someone else's journey verbatim. So it may help to speak to as many people as you can, then pick those pieces together and try to figure out what works for you. Yeah. I'm big on faith, so I would say pray, right? I would say pray and I would say trust God. Because for me, I mentioned that I didn't even finish the syllabus by the time by the time we're done with the externship. But I came to law school with strong faith, if there's anything like that. There was never a time when I felt that I wasn't going to finish with the first class. There was never a time like that. So I just knew, right? I just chose to believe God, and I chose to just like insist on the fact that God will help me. I think that's just the way it was for me. So even when it was like things were not working, it was like I wasn't meeting my reading goals. Like it was like I was sometimes I felt like maybe I was far behind. The fact that we didn't even resume early and I was trying to catch up, the fact that I didn't mentally prepare, it was just a lot. But I just believed that God would help me. And I just held on to God for that. I held on to God and His word, and I just so there's the in summary, there's the faith aspect of it, right? Holding on to God, trusting God, because really I'm of the belief that God can help you even when you can't help yourself, right? He can direct you, he can give you a strategy that would work for you. Even like that's not even coming from what anyone has said before or any tip anyone has given you before. So for me, God played a major role in my journey and in the way I prepared for bar finals. So that's another thing. Then I would say I know I'd mentioned it again, but it's best I say it again. Please solve questions. I'm not saying solve past questions, then also solve task questions. Like just solve questions that came from law school. Right? So please don't throw away those tasks that you are solving in class. If you can write out the answers in class, please write out the answers and just keep them somewhere. They would be really, really helpful for revision. So for me, for my revision, I solved all the task questions and they really helped because the tasks are like in a way you can call it law school's question bank, right? So they may just for your back final examinations, it's likely going to be something you've seen before, right? It could be they could just tweak one of your tasks or something, or pick something and just, but it will most likely be something that you've seen before if you are being diligent with solving questions. So I would say read a lot, then please apply what you've read by solving past questions and by solving task questions. So for me, especially for the weeks leading up to bar finals, my tasks were very helpful because as I was reading a topic, right, you have a scenario with you where you can apply what you've read to, and it was really helpful. So I'll say don't just read, please read and please answer past questions. So for my drafts, what I did, I got A4 paper, I got a pack of A4 paper, and I was drafting inside. I was drafting, making sure the drafts were correct, and then I had like a file. I had this pack of cornflakes, that cornflakes carton. I converted it to like a file that I could save my A4 papers. So I had A4 papers, I had like a file for each course or something like that. And whenever I draft, I'll just save it. And it really helped for last minute revision because when you have like a paper for 10 a.m., right? And you wake up early in the morning, it just helps when you can bring out all your drafts and just look at them in seconds, right? Instead of having to go to the different scattered places where things are. So I drafted and put them away, right? Sometimes when I want to practice my drafts, I can just bring them out and try to read and memorize and things like that. So please have those drafts, and it's best to draft as you are being taught, right? So that you can get whatever corrections are given in class and you can like implement them. So that's another thing. So please don't like neglect your drafts. I would also advise that you have like a good support system. So it's important to have a good support system of friends or family, right? Have someone you can speak to and things like that. So I had a support system, I had a reading group, and we all did well. So that also helps. Please attend classes and ask questions. Don't be afraid to ask questions, right? If there's anything you do not understand, please make sure it's resolved. Please don't gloss over it. That may be question one in your bar now. So please, if there's anything you don't understand, ask questions. One beautiful thing about law school is that the lecturers are very accessible. They are very, very accessible. You can reach out to them on WhatsApp and they are going to respond to you, right? So please ask questions if you don't understand anything. Don't gloss over anything you don't understand. So please just prioritize understanding whatever you read. Master your authorities, but prioritize your principles. So yeah, these are the tips that I can give. How did I feel when I checked my result and saw that it was a first class? I was, of course. So I was very happy. I was very happy. I was very thankful. It was amazing. I felt happy. I felt very happy. I felt like it was worth it. And yeah, I was happy. My family was happy. Everyone was happy. I checked it in the midnight, so I couldn't sleep. After seeing my results, I couldn't sleep. I woke my mom up, and then I was just awake and I was just thankful, right? I didn't allow myself to imagine getting anything less than first class. So if I say was I expecting it, I was expecting it. I was very hopeful, right? Not like I didn't have doubts, because of course you know how law school is. Law school can be very volatile, but I was very hopeful that I was going to like finish with the first class, and God did it. Do I think law school is overrated? Law school is not overrated. Please don't think law school is overrated. You'll be stressed. There's a lot to read. Law school is not overrated. And so, yeah, I don't think law school is overrated. And even if it were to be overrated, I would not advise anyone currently in law school to see law school as being overrated. It's better for you to do more work than is required and get the desired results than to do less work only to find out that you should have done more. So, yeah, I don't think law school is overrated, and I would not advise anyone to go to law school with that mindset. What role did my support system play in my success? Family, friends, mentors. I think this is a good time to dedicate my first class to them. So for family, they were always there. I didn't lack anything in law school, and I want to. This is a good time to thank my family for that. Right, my family was there. My parents were a great support. My elder brother, shout out to my elder brother. He made sure that I was well taken care of. So there were times when I had extra, even apart from whatever my parents provided. So yes, my family was a huge support system. They believed in me. And I think that's also important. Having people that believe that you can do it, not people that are waiting to see what will come out with, right? And for my friends and mentors, it was the same. They believed that I could come out with a first class. I even had mentors that promised me certain things if I made a first class, and they called the law school. So I interned at MTN Nigeria, and I had an amazing set of support system. Like I had an amazing support system. So people reached out, did I need anything, gave me pieces of advice, made sure that I was supported, and they believed in me. So I had an amazing support system. My friends, they were there. We went through everything together, and yeah, so that was what law school was law school was fun. I can say law school was fun in a way. It was an experience, right? I never felt alone. I never felt like I was alone. And that was a big deal. Even in law school, the friends I made in law school, the friends that I was lucky to go to law school with, right? Shout out to Bosse, my roommate. Bosse de Hassan. Let me call her full name. So yeah, I had an amazing support system, and they just made me believe I could do it, and that played a major role. Did I watch Young VIP TV when I was in law school? Yes, I watched everything I could watch. And so, how did it impact or inspire me? The stories of other people who had gone ahead played a major role, and I was able to pick useful tips. I was able to see that, well, all hope isn't lost. I was able to see that at least people I watched, they didn't have two heads. And they were honest enough to actually share things that worked for them. And yeah, I gained a lot from that. So yes, shout out to Young VIP TV. Is there anything additional that I would like to say? So yes, I would like to say a few things. One thing I would like to say, I think I've mentioned it, but I think it's important that I mention it again, right? It's not over until it is over. You are not done until you until you hear pens up in the exam hall. You are not done, right? And there are different perspectives to this. First, if you feel like maybe you're not done with the syllabus and many people have gone ahead of you, right? Whenever you wake up is your morning. You can pick up your books today and start reading. You can resolve to do things differently today. You can resolve to drop that material that is not working for you and find something else that suits you better today, right? Even if it's 2 weeks to bar finals, right? You can still do some things differently in a way that will move you forward. So it's not really over until it's over, right? You can start reading today. You can set up a timetable that will work for you today, right? You can change your friends today if you have friends that are not helping. So it's not over until it's over. 24 hours to bar finals, you can still do a lot. 4 hours to bar finals, you can still do a lot, right? Last minute revision you can find something that will give you extra 10 marks. So please, like, it's not over until it's over. The other aspect, right, is that the fact that you've read a lot, you've been reading a lot, right, for maybe 9 months does not mean you should stop reading. I think you should, it's not really over until it's over. So I would say that you shouldn't bank on your previous efforts. Push till the end. So it's not really over until it's over. Don't let your guard down. 4 hours to go. Pick up your books and keep on reading. Right? Keep on revising. Right? Please. So just don't give up. Don't give up. So if maybe externship is ending and you are not done or you didn't hit your goals the way you expected, there's still time, right? Whether the time is a lot of time or it's not a lot of time, it's still time. And there's a lot you can do with the time you are given. So please just never give up. Keep on pushing. If you are a faith-based person, please hold God. Even if you are not a faith-based person, I encourage you, right? There's a lot that God can do for you. God can help you, right? And please don't be afraid to say, God help me if you feel like you are weak. So yeah, that's something I'm going to say. Right? Just don't give up, and you can do it. Can do it. Please don't doubt your abilities. Doesn't matter where you're coming from. It doesn't matter what you finished with in school or anything like that. Just set a goal for yourself and have faith and keep on pushing. Thank you very much.